Hello YouTube, Alex here with Alex's Agamids. In today's video, this is honestly going to be more of a casual video. My original video, how to build a Chinese water dragon enclosure, that was 6 years ago. Can you believe that? 2016, and here we are filming in 2022 with Harriet still going strong. But as you can see, a lot has changed since that initial build, and since you guys want to see the setup and just the success that I've had with this setup, I figured I would break down every aspect of the enclosure for you. So to begin, this enclosure measures 48 inches or 4 feet long. It is approximately 26 inches deep, and then it is 5 feet tall or 60 inches tall. On top, I've got my baby water dragon cages. I don't have any babies for this season right now, so those are empty. However, I try to maximize space with breeding water dragons. So this houses my female most of the year, and then I'll throw my male in here during the breeding season, so that way she can pair up and lay her eggs. If you guys haven't watched my previous videos, generally speaking, Chinese water dragons do not do well together long term. Call me a hypocrite, because as you can imagine, as a breeder, there are times I'll leave Ozzy in here for like a year with Harriet as long as they're getting along. But the truth is, if you don't have the space for multiple enclosures to house reptiles individually, in the event that a cohabitative setting fails, you're going to eventually end up with a dead water dragon. So if you're watching this video and you have the idea of keeping a pet water dragon, keep them by themselves. That's what I would recommend as far as safety is concerned. So the exterior of this enclosure is built around a frame of 1x2s, and then that is completely sealed from the inside with 1/2 inch plywood. So if we look all the way on the side right here, where I'm running my electrical, each light in her enclosure is controlled by smart outlets, which if you haven't seen my light cycle setup video, I'll leave a card right up here somewhere on the video where you can see how I have these organized to mimic a sunrise sunset feature. And you can see here is the 1x2 frame. I used to have a power strip hanging on here, that's why there's some screws, and then the plywood is screwed from the inside onto this frame, so that way when we open up the enclosure, as you can see, despite the glare, it's just solid sides of plywood. The door is lockable. I hardly keep this locked because I'm the only one that has access to this room. So this pops out, and that allows you to open the door. Then, for the sake of keeping the doors flush, I have 4 latching pins, one down here as well, and then the doors begin to open. So here's the interior. A lot has changed since that video. Here's Harriet, my female Chinese water dragon. She's coming up on 9 years old this fall, which is crazy to think, but she's still doing really well. You can see she's going through a bit of a shed right now, so she's doing her thing. As I've stated in previous videos, Chinese water dragons, contrary to popular belief, do not require a large naturalistic water section. Myself, people who have been keeping water dragons longer than I have been alive vouch for having an area that you can change every day, so that way these animals are getting fresh water constantly. So I used to have a big 28-quart tub, and don't get me wrong, it worked, but the fact is, you can see she still has all of her nice tall back spines. You can see these spines on her tail are getting ready to shed. She has no shedding issues as long as you keep her hydrated and you keep the enclosure humid. I have also dabbled in some live plants. I have got Cebu blue pothos, I've got Trident. I won't lie, I don't even remember this plant's genus name. It was a plant my friend gave me from college, but I just know it's water dragon safe. And while water dragons are typically quite destructive of live plants, the key that I have found if you want to do live plants or a bioactive setup is to have the plants growing in an area where your dragon is seldom at. Water dragons, they're semi-arboreal lizards. They spend about 80% of their time, I'd say, up in the branches. The other 20% is divided between swimming and pooping in their water, and then of course, in the sake of a female, hunting insects on the ground. I have a ceramic bowl I put in her nest box, and then obviously she will lay eggs there. So as long as she's up here, that gives these plants the ability to vine, and eventually the goal is that the pothos and this species that grows all the way up, they will simply take over the cork background and create a really nice looking environment that aesthetically looks pleasing to me every time I open this enclosure. And then at the same time, live plants add humidity. One of the biggest issues that I had to face when I was fixing up this cage build. If you guys look way back, and I'll put a screenshot right now, I actually had holes cut out that fit into the top of the cage. And as you can see, that has drastically changed. I have improved my lighting. And the truth is, I am from Chicagoland area of Illinois. Our winters here are brutally dry. We are running the heat in the house. It's practically impossible to maintain 80% relative humidity in an enclosure with screen sections. So I have no screens at the top now. The top panel is 1/4-inch plywood as opposed to 1/2-inch plywood, and I have got a 30-inch Zilla Prosol fixture screwed to the top with these 6.5K LED lights. And then one thing I have changed from my last videos is instead of the Zilla mini halogen domes, which worked fine, but I was having some issues with getting a high enough ambient temperature, I actually switched to the Arcadia Pro Ceramic sockets, and then these are actually just Philips 39-watt par 38 halogen floodlights. So even though, I mean, for reference, this is about 9 inches. So she's about, yeah, like I said, with her back 8 inches away. This basking spot only stays around 110, 115. And so I like that because it's very energy efficient. You know, those are only 39-watt bulbs. But then by having no screen sections, the heat that is released from these bulbs stays trapped inside this cage much better, as well as the humidity, and therefore I can maintain a high humidity environment. Of course, to monitor this environment, I've got my probe dangling in the air to tell me the air temperature. You guys have seen my temperature setup video. Again, I will leave a link right up here to it. Pretty much lighting wise, it's the 2 basking spots. She's got her center basking spot, and then I've got this nice thin perch, and she can sit right up there under the second halogen bulb. And the truth is, as I've said in previous videos, the key to a successful water dragon setup is to give them options. It has to be very boring as a lizard to just sit in an enclosure all day and do nothing. You want these animals to act naturally, and with Harriet, at least in her case, and I do this for all my water dragons, even when I'm raising babies up in these little enclosures, is that the lights turn on at different times in the morning. So typically that is actually the first light to kick on. And again, I tagged the video up here earlier, but watch my light cycle video. For reference, this is a Zoomed T5 10.0 34-inch Reptile UVB light, and you notice how here she can bask 12 inches away from it. I've done the measuring, whereas over here she's actually about 15 inches. And honestly, where she's sitting right now, it's about 2 feet down because these cork panels are actually 18 inches deep, so you can see where they split. And she's right about here, and the Reptile's all the way up there. So the point is, just with this combination of sticks, she has access to different levels of UVB. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing here, but there are some keepers out there that just have one stick in one area with the exact same light bulb and the exact same UVB lamp, and they don't offer a gradient. In nature, they can move in and out of sunlight, they can climb up higher, they can go down in the shade. And if we put them in a box in captivity, what type of quality of life is that for your water dragons? I mean, I'm not trying to go on a tangent here, but truly, when you're setting up an enclosure, especially in this case, a DIY setup, giving your lizard options is just the key. So UVB, heat, visible light, I've gone over this in my basking setup video, which once again, I will leave a card right up here. Again, I've got big pieces of cork. She actually really likes to sleep up here and on here. I've got another cork flat there, another cork flat there, a nice big cork branch right here next to this big piece of driftwood. The key really is just giving your lizards options as far as decorations. Biggest thing that I know people are going to ask is, how do I keep this enclosure humid without the wood damaging? Do you see how there's no rot on this wood? This plywood has been fine for 6 years. And what I'll do is I'll post a screenshot right now. When I first built this enclosure, we put 3 heavy coats of water-based polyurethane on it. If you're building a DIY cage for a high humidity species like a water dragon, the key is to make sure you have your wood sealed. Even though I have this cork background screwed onto the back, the back panels are completely covered still with water-based polyurethane. Just because, again, these guys need to be kept so humid. If you're not staying on top of spraying them, in this case, just going to create a warm, humid sauna for them. If you don't have your wood sealed, in summary, your wood will break down and it's going to rot. For reference, I actually did not seal these little pieces, and you can see already there's water damage on it. But then you look at the wood here, and this stuff is perfectly fine. There's no water damage. You can see where I've got like my brackets and stuff to fit the frame. Here's more of that 1x2 frame. But again, if you watch my video, it's not as good because it was filmed 6 years ago and I definitely was not as educated on cage builds as I am now. But the point is that have your cage sealed, waterproofed, and they'll do the rest. Get Harriet up here on the basking light for you so you guys can see her better. But there's the girl I said. She's in shed right now, so you can see she's got really dull head color, and she's not as green as she normally is, but she's a pretty damn good looking female. Nice, long, healthy tail. I believe last time I measured her, she was around 28 inches. And again, notice how, if I step back here, this is a 48-inch cage. Look how small she looks in there. A lot of people will say a 4-foot cage is too small for an adult water dragon. The truth is, as long as you've got a variety of climbing surfaces and I'm maximizing that space, she's living a nice, comfortable life. Obviously, bigger is always better. I've got my 6-foot cage, which I'm gonna cover in another video. However, the truth is, guys, I kind of get sick of people saying enclosures are too small, when in fact, I think people do not maximize the space in their enclosure. Again, this is 4 foot by 5 foot by 2.5. And I've got so much usable space in here. Honestly, I could probably even throw another log right across there. And that way she is truly having access to different temperatures, different UV indexes, different thermogradients. That's all you really need, guys. It's not that hard, and especially when you're doing a DIY setup like this, it's gonna last you years to come. I know Harriet, I mean, she looks perfect. She's doing so well. And I would like to think that if this DIY enclosure was too small, or honestly just too terrible, quote unquote, she wouldn't look perfect like this. I mean, there are a lot of females that they're missing their spikes and they're not kept humid enough. You can see Harriet, she's missing toes right here. I got her like that. She was a wild caught juvenile back in 2013. So they don't exactly grow toes back, people. But again, perfect spines. That's a sign that she's kept humid and hydrated, which again, all can be done if you build a cage correctly. No screen sections, you keep it humid with live plants, you spray it 2 times a day. Honestly, in the summer, I only spray it once a day because it stays 80% humidity, which is again, monitored by my probe dangling in the air. A lot of the information that you're hearing me state in this video, I'm just reciting off of my Chinese Water Dragon 101 playlist, which again, I'll link right up here and in the description, just because a lot of you guys watch my content for water dragons, you find it helpful. But honestly, that is a DIY water dragon setup. The last thing that I want to cover, and I'm just going to shut the enclosure, is that water dragons, as I have found out extensively and very quickly, water dragons do not understand the concept of glass or any clear barriers. So that's why you will see my juvenile setups are completely covered. My male's enclosure is completely covered. Same with my females, because while she did fine in this for like the first year, I found that once she started breeding and becoming more active and showing that natural behavior, she would actually climb up and try and jump through the glass, and she would hit her face. And the moment I saw that, I covered this up. And I think that is the one con to owning water dragons, is that if they didn't nose rub against clear barriers, they would make a great display species. And the truth is, I'm a very busy person. I go to college full time. I work during the day. And I really only see these animals in the morning when I'm caring for them and in the evening when I'm maybe spraying them again. As a keeper, I do not mind that I cannot see my animals because I have a life outside of my hobby. If you truly want to have a display setup where you can see your animal, a water dragon is probably not the pet for you. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from owning water dragons. Like I said, they're beautiful. And you can see, like, I've got little windows where I can peek in on her. But from her eye level, she cannot see out. I have to look down and in on her setup. That's the only con I'd have to say from my DIY build, is I have to just cover it all with paper because she will rub her face. So, a little bit of a casual video, like I said, a little bit of a lecture, but there you have it. That is my DIY Chinese water dragon cage setup. I hope you guys found this helpful. Feel free to leave a like, comment down below what you thought on the video, and subscribe. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Adios.